Welcome to the ArcaneMystic, your weekly sanctuary for health, well-being and spiritual exploration. Whether you're delving into the healing power of frequency medicines, uncovering hidden wisdom, or seeking a deeper connection on your journey back to self, this podcast is a guide to the mystical side of life. Join us each week as we explore ancient practices, modern techniques, and timeless truths that help you unlock your true potential. We bring together a community of like-minded souls who are passionate about spiritual growth and personal transformation. This podcast is about the soul's journey and the wisdom that lies within. So if you're ready to elevate your mind, body and spirit, subscribe to the ArcaneMystic today. Let's awaken the inner mystic and embark on a journey of discovery together. Remember, the journey to self is the most powerful journey of all. Hello, and welcome to the ArcaneMystic. Today we have the wonderful Jade Melany. I was playing around with her name today. I was thinking Jade Melany, something, quite suave. But anyway, it's Jade Melany, right?
It is Jade Melany, and it's lovely to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you too. Now, the reason for this podcast, I'm going to call this podcast The Initiate's Way after Jade's book. And it's a very important podcast, I think, for the times that we're living in today, where people are really questioning the structure of society that we're living in at the moment. And it's crumbling, as you all well know. It's not working. None of the systems are that have been involved in this societal construct. So we're talking about maybe food, the water, the medicine side of things, political structures, every kind of infrastructure that constitutes to the way that we live today. Now, all of us were born into this construct, went to school, we've come out the other side of it, and now we're at a point within society where so many people don't know where to go. And the reason why they don't know where to go is because they've been following ways that were given to us, when all along we had our own ways that were within us. And now we have three options. We can continue on following the narrative that's been set out for us. We can maybe go out and find a guru or somebody that can guide us to something more, something that we are looking for somebody to teach us that's from outside of ourselves. And the third way for me is the initiate's way. And this is where Jade comes in. So Jade, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, it's funny you should set it out like that, because when I was writing the book, I was trying to figure out how people were going to come to it. And I think those are the three ways that people try to make decisions. And for me, going within, I didn't have any other choice, because I thought, what is going on? This world it's mental. What the things that are going on around me, I don't understand. There has to be more than this. And literally, at the time that I started writing the Pathworkings, I was on my own with twin babies, and I started looking within. And it was at that point that my inner healer, the goddess within, stepped forward, and I painted the very first painting, which was the High Priestess, and everything else came after that. So she birthed the whole process when the goddess stepped out from within. And I think everybody has their own healing space within them. Yeah. And that's where you begin your journey, is you go within yourself and you create sanctuary and safe space. And she is there. Yeah, she comes out to help you to do that.
The story just brought me out in goosebumps. I just went, but it was a nice kind of, when you can really
like goosebumps are good. That's confirmation. See, you started me off now.
But this is really lovely, because a lot of people are at that place where you are, or where you were when you had those twin boys. It was almost like a blank screen, but you didn't know where to look,
No.
And I always find that in those moments of darkness, if you don't find yourself, then something else takes over. And really, it's a rite of passage to be able to align with your inner self. And one of the reasons why I've decided to work on an inner journey with regards to my work is I'm a homeopath and I work with a lot of different people. I do other things like tarot readings, like you do. I also work with astrology and other systems in practice, but I've got a lot of people coming to me at the moment that are struggling with which way to go with things, even with their healing. And with regards to the healing aspects of it, if you're moving away from modernized techniques and methods, yes, there's holistic care, which can work really well for you. But the other thing that's really important is that there's other things that you can do on a healing journey to create a sacred space,
Yes.
you know? And this could be within your home, it's within yourself. I looked at a post of yours today where you've been through some kind of health situation at the moment, and you've been working through it. And on your temple, I saw Hygeia and Asclepius. And the temple, again, is all about a sacred space, because once you've got your area within your home that you go to and you sit and you do whatever it is that you need to do within that space, you're creating a psychic charge within that area.
Yeah.
So please tell us about, Hygeia and Asclepius and why you chose those models.
Well, I didn't choose them. They chose me.
Wow.
When I first started creating sculptures out of air-dry clay, Hygeia was one of the first that I created using river water. I sat with the glass bottom out of a microwave to turn it around as I was making them, and she appeared. And then
but you tapped into something unconscious, in the unconscious.
This is it. Not long after that, I made Asclepius, and the reading that I've done on it, it's like, even down to the symbol of the pentagram that I've just found out today was Hygeia's symbol. Did you know that? Yeah. I didn't know that until today, and I've been using pentagrams for I don't know how long, but I was doing a little bit of reading, and it was how the Pythagoreans used to recognize each other was from this symbol. Not long after that, Asclepius came out afterwards. He was the next sculpture that I made, and they are, as I understand it, father and daughter in the pantheons.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I think that's amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. And Asclepius has been teetering on the outer edges of society for a bit with Graham Hancock and the Ancient Apocalypse. Melissa Tittle talks about him in her Code 12, which is found on Amazon. I've certainly done a lot of research into Asclepius because from a healing perspective, the way that he did things was absolutely incredible. Okay. And there's a lot of books out there, and you will always see the lost teachings of Asclepius. And if we come back to that kind of sacred space again, he did in a temple. Okay. And the people there was incantations, there was snakes on the ground, there was also incenses and stuff burnt in that area.
And dreams.
Dreams. Yeah.
And dreams.
Yeah. So what they would do is the people would go into the temples, they would explain what their problems were, and then they were given concoctions that would enable them to sleep. And in that sleep, they were able to figure out what they needed to heal themselves. Yeah. And some say that Asclepius came to them within the dreams. But again, we're coming back to a point where the knowing came from an inner self. And when you're in those psychically charged areas, you're able to tap into something that sits outside of this reality. Now, Asclepius is really powerful, as you know, and he ended up being able to help people on a deeper level, to the point that people stopped going to the fates when they died. So his grandfather got really angry and took him out. His grandfather was Zeus, his father was Apollo. And in the end, he was made to be a constellation in the sky called Ficus. And he was written out of astrology, some say. So for me, when I did my research into him, and I certainly wrote about him in my book called The Road to Sovereignty, the archetype that he embodies is medical sovereignty for me.
Wow. See, that is so apt.
And this is something that's really needed, today. And I think the bit that I like about him that really resonates with your work is that the people had to go within themselves to get the answers. It wasn't that they went to him and he was like, yep, you need this, take this prescription for 2 weeks and all the rest of it. Everything that
become your own healer.
Yep.
Yep. And taking charge of your own self and knowing your own self. I mean, those old teachings are more relevant today than they have ever been.
Yeah. And the thing is, as well, with this at the moment, with the way that you're working with things, it's magical because it's not just tarot readings, it's not just painting. You've taken lots of different creative kind of sciences and put them together, and it's enabled you to find a pathway that's in alignment with who and what you are. But the starting point was trauma. It was some kind of sadness, and it gave you a way.
Well, becoming the wounded healer, you have to heal yourself first before you could even consider trying to help anybody else heal their problems.
Yeah, and talking about the wounded healer, the one that trained Asclepius was Chiron.
True story. I painted him many years ago after a vision in a forest in France where I seen an image of a centaur with a shining light behind him. Incredible.
That's incredible. And so now, with you on your journey, what would you say, for instance, while you've not been 100% well, what have your daily practices or just some kind of guidance to somebody that's not feeling 100% that will help them to attune with something more within themselves?
The most important thing, I would say, is grounding and nature, because once you are disconnected from nature, you have no hope in hell of getting better.
So true.
Grounding and trees and woods and rivers and anywhere that you can get your actual feet on the ground and listen and be still. I mean, that's where you find your sanity, basically, away from the madness of the world. You put your feet on the ground and you listen. Yeah. I mean, I have actually been quite poorly in the sense that I've been in hospital poorly, and every day I would get up, I would have breakfast, do whatever needed to be done, and I would walk down to the bottom of the grounds to a tree that was a white willow tree, and I would sit with my back against the tree, and I had my ferber, which is a Tibetan dagger, and I would do my little ritual of grounding and setting myself in the ground with the tree behind me as my support every day. That kept me sane for the rest of the day, and everything I had to deal with after that.
You created an energy charge within yourself using your surroundings or becoming one with them.
Yes.
And in that moment of clarity, you were able to connect to a safe space within. Okay. Yes. And that helped you to be able to move out of whatever mindset that the craziness outside of you could have put you in.
Yeah. And even after that, I would go back to the room where I had to have infusions and stuff like that, and put my headphones on and do the actual pathworkings myself, the ones that everybody else goes and does on YouTube. I do them myself, listening to them, so that I can keep my own healing journey rolling. It never stops. You never stop learning, you never stop healing. It continues.
Is an endless one, isn't it? Because we've got the healing inside the system, and then you've got the healing outside, which is the transcendence self, and that's an ongoing journey forever, And if you were, for somebody that has no idea of what the pathways are, how would you describe them?
How would I describe them? I would describe them as pools of consciousness that have kind of come together that people can go and visit by using visualizations and have inner journeys where they can go in and find parts of themselves. I think there's actual connections between the pathworkings in the Initiate's Way and the dream world, because a lot of the visualizations that I wrote came from situations I dreamed about when I was using certain major arcana, and then I pulled them from the dreaming into our waking, and those spaces are sacred spaces. So I would say the pathworkings are sacred spaces themselves that you can go to, but they are in the inner world, that they're not in the physical world around us. They're in your creative imagination. And the more you use them, the stronger they become, and the more you can get from them. And you might meet some interesting characters in them as well.
Yeah. The interesting thing that you said was the major arcana. And for those of
Yes.
you that are unaware of what that is, that's within the tarot.
Yes. So the pathworkings in the Initiates, where there are 22 of them. So I wrote 22 pathworkings, one for each of the major arcana, and the images came after I had used the pathworkings. So the space was created with the words and the visualizations, and then the images, the paintings came after that.
Really interesting how consciousness works, because
Isn't
a lot
it?
of stuff that I've got from my book, I got from my dreams.
Mm.
And I'd be woken up with things sometimes, or just messages that made no sense at the time. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
other thing with this, is that when you're on your journey, it's weird because we've had different journeys. We've done different things in our life. We're completely different people, but
Yeah.
we've more or less ended up at the same spot. And that just goes to show you that really, if you journey within yourself, we're living in a world within a world. And it's like there's something trying to overshadow the old worlds. And whatever this energy is what's driving people insane. But underneath all of that, within the unconscious, there's something that you can tap into that will enable you to live a life that you never knew existed. And most of us have that calling. We have intuition, we've got gut
Yeah.
feeling. Most people don't listen, and most people don't follow that inner part. And I think that with the Initiate's Way, the hardest bit for people would be learning to trust themselves with that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because there are a couple of people that I have had discussions with in the past about pathworkings, and they've said the thought of pathworking, especially with the Aleister Crowley's tarot, oh, they'd be terrified to pathwork with that. Now, I used all of the Aleister Crowley major arcana to pathwork before having children. Like, I'd already done all that. And there was a deck of cards that I created out of those experiences, which was the Soulscapes Tarot, and then obviously went on to study hypnotherapy and stuff like that. And that's how the Initiate's Way came about, because when I understood more about hypnotherapy, I could bring all that in.
Yeah. And it is an operation of bringing in the unknown,
Yes.
literally found your own arcane mystic within yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
And what's really interesting about what you said about Aleister Crowley, I've worked with his cards, I've got no problems with that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are too scared to look at what they would deem the darkness. Okay.
Or even the dark in themselves. They won't even accept the darkness in themselves.
And this is something that terrifies them. But the interesting thing about that part of it is that we're living in a world that there is a lot of darkness at the moment that people are still not looking at. Okay. And if you're going to walk on journey to self, there is light and dark, and then there's the middle way. Okay. Everything really for me now is all about the middle way and
Yeah.
about navigating and meandering. It's about accountability. I had one woman that I was treating using homeopathy. She did so well on that. She had been through something really traumatic. And the reason why I chose homeopathy, or why I like it, is because when you go to a homeopath, you have your consultation, they ask you loads of questions, and at the end of it, you get a remedy. You take that home. We could take the same one and have completely different experiences on that, because we've got different ancestral messages or different trauma. There's a lot going on with that. So anyway, she's come back. She's all fluffy and shiny and happy. And she goes to the church and they say to her, no, you can't use that. It's the devil's work. Yeah. And she stopped and she said to me, Elona, I really want to continue using this, but the pastor told me not to. And here we've got the blockage between herself and her spirit. And she's gone to a middleman instead of kind of following her intuition. And so she stopped. And I've got another woman that I'm working with at the moment that's kind of indoctrinated with, dogmatic ideologies that have been passed down. And she's a bit stuck right now. And the only reason why she's stuck is because she wants to go any other way than what she's been taught. But yet she's surrounded by people that don't allow her to grow within herself. And this is where isolation is important. There's parts of your journey that you need to do on your own.
There's very big parts of the journey that you need to do on your own. Nobody else can walk your path either. They can walk alongside you for a while, but in the end, it is a journey that you have to take on your own, especially where the ancestral stuff comes in. Don't take any of that stuff lightly. My ancestral roots lie on one side in Ireland and on the other side in Germanic. So there's a whole lot of stuff on both sides that need healing. And I think over the last year, 2 years, even this manifestation of physical illness, I think, had something to do with healing stuff that has come down the line and hopefully will not go any further.
You can heal before and after because you've got awareness. And also as well, the other thing on the initiate's pathway that I think is really important, you've said about the two different pathways that you've got. And it's about going to the one where you feel the calling. Okay. But your magic is most potent, really, when you follow your genetic ancestors, because that information is within you.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely within reach in that pool of consciousness because it's in your genetics, isn't it?
Yeah. And some people that I've worked with that go against that and go with somebody else's ancestral message had a really hard time.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, those other ancestors aren't going to be very happy, are they?
No. And the other thing as well, neither are yours, because they've done all this work. Yeah, for all this time to get us all to kind of this point. And we don't follow on with those teachings. And I think that all of us here are a wisdom in one way or another. And we've got something to bring to the table, but it is about the journey within. Okay, so that sits there. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, with all the chaos going on in the world, some people get really sucked into it all and they really struggle to know how to deal with things moving forwards. On the initiate's way, what would you suggest to those people that are finding that they've got energy leaks in lots of different areas?
Look at who they are spending their time around, what they are putting their attention on. I know I'm always harping on about it, but for goodness sake, get rid of your TV.
It's a big one, isn't it? It's the phones as well.
Get rid of it. Throw it away. Don't ever watch it again. You can find other methods to look for things that you want to know. That, yes, the internet also has its downsides, but things like this would not happen if it were not for the internet, whereas a lot of people are conditioned and programmed, because that's exactly what it's for. The conditional programming is there. It's constant until you turn it off, and then you come back and look at it. I mean, 2001, I stopped paying for a TV license and said, look, I'm not watching that. Just not doing it anymore. And when you look at it now, after not seeing it for that long, you think, wow.
And people live their lives governed by a black box,
Chinese call it the idiot lamp.
Really? Yeah, it's insane. The other thing that's really good as well is the tribes. It's the smaller little communities of people that are coming together. And they're all on their own initiate's way. They're all walking their own pathways. They're coming to a point within themselves where they really know who they are, but then they can stand in a circle with others that also know who they are. And it's a completely different conversation. It's a different feeling. It's a whole different community. And the world that we lived in before had smaller tribes. They didn't have this. It feels like since everything's spread out and everything's become more we've gone more of a corporate way where anything can go. You can be anything you want. You can, be a cat
That's
if
not necessarily a good thing, though, is it?
no, it's terrible
You want
because
to
the
be
thing
self.
is, yeah, quite like being a woman. But my son said something. He said to me, Mum, don't you find that certain people make you question your own species? And I can't argue with that. But there's some people out there that don't want to grow. That's not a problem. And then there's people like us that when we find our way, we know which way to go. And that comes from the inner GPRS system that we've got within.
Yeah,
We've got inner knowing. And really, for me, it's about following that pathway.
absolutely. I,
Yeah.
I can't disagree with you. Having walked this path for so long now, the Initiate's Way came out in 2020. Like, the timing of it couldn't have been more spectacular, right in the midst of all that crazy stuff that was going on. And I was putting YouTube videos out thinking, I really hope people are going to watch these and feel like they're not going insane, and that they can find this space within themselves to get through to the other side, and then out and, have some real life on the outside once we get out.
Mm. And that was a massive test to see whether
Mhm.
you followed what was given or whether you listened to that kind of inner knowing. And we're seeing all of it play out now, which is quite interesting. But with all the chaos, what I try and do with it is I leave it over there. I have a little sneak peek, see what's going on, and then I come back to the center.
Mm.
Yeah.
There was a painting I did during I think it was the first lockdown, and it had three figures on it, like the three figures of the goddess, the mother, maiden, crone, and there was a dream to do with stone circles and gatherings and things like that. And I seen this image of Times Square in London and people walking around, and they just didn't see each other. It was like there were ghosts walking around, and they weren't even seeing each other's existence. And the message behind the dream was how important it is to have your tribe, your community around you, because the rest of those unconscious beings were basically just like zombies walking around. And it was so profound.
But it feels like that a bit now. There's certain people,
I know.
and there's just no vibration. It's not that one's better, it's not that one's worse. It's
No.
not that for me. There's just no connection. That's how I feel with it. And it's almost like you end up only being in safe spaces. I spend quite a lot of time alone anyway, but
Yeah.
it is really much like that now. And this is why dreams are really important. And for those that find it difficult to tap into, look at dream herbs, get into circadian rhythms in nature as well, because you've got your mugwort season,
Yeah.
you've got all sorts of different things that grow within the seasons that can align you with a higher nature. And again, it's about finding the tools that work for you. That's what's important, because my tools will not be the same as yours, but we
True.
can still move together in a really good way. And we might have five things that we do that overlap, but then there'll be two that don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is just about that part of it. So I think that with regards to this at the moment, I'm quite happy with what you've shared today and just the information that comes from being creative, from listening to that inner knowing, to receiving messages that we don't always understand all the time, but finding your way through the struggles that we're all currently facing at the moment to be
Mm-hmm.
able to reach a higher level of consciousness from within.
Learning to listen to your own intuition is the one thing that I would tell everybody. Whatever's going on in the world outside, the madness, the craziness, you listen to your instinct and you listen to your own intuition and gut, and you will not go far wrong.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for this today,
Thank
Jane.
you.
That's absolutely fine. If you want more information about Jade, where can people find you?
I have a Substack which gets updated every now and again. I think I sent you the Substack link. I don't have copies of the Initiate's Way book at the moment, but the publisher does. So you can either get a digital copy or a soft cover or a hard cover. I have one here, which I will
Yep.
flash you. There you go. That's a hard copy. Alter edition. I may need to publish more cards, so I only have maybe 10 decks left. So if people want
Look at
cards,
this creativity.
I'll
Look
get
at
some.
that. Yeah. Can you show us one of your cards, please?
I will see which one comes out. Let's have a look. Oh, there we go. There's the Chariot.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Look at that artwork. And that's really come from within. That's really fascinating and brilliant. And I love your sculptures as well. I love your art. It's like you're tuning into something outside of this and bringing it into this realm, and it can evoke all sorts of wonderful feelings.
I love it when people get in touch with me and tell me about how the art makes them feel, or if it inspires them, or if they've had a reading or something like that, they'll come back to me and say, you know what you told me in that reading, and they've gone on and got better or moved forward. For me, that's the best thing about it.
Yeah, and that is a really good thing. And the thing is with it as well, even having tarot at home or your divination tools, whether it be runes, it doesn't really matter whether you read the algorithms. Once you get into that kind of practice, again, you're creating a psychic charge around you that keeps you in alignment. So thank you for sharing that wisdom.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Speak to you today. And yeah, that's the end of this show for the Arcane Mystic.